We're technically we're on week 6. So today is very much about process. Like today is all about practice and process. Like it's very much not a theoretical day. So everything that you're going to learn today is basically having to do with elements of how you can ultimately find your artistic voice within your practice, right? Like through iteration, through the work that you do, you're going to end up finding obviously the things that you want to say, and you're not necessarily waiting to have the time or the space or the permission to say it. So today is very much focused on practice. I think also this will be one of the most personal classes that we'll have because I'll be drawing very directly from a project that I've been working on in collaboration with our guest. And so it'll probably be one of the more personal classes because I'll very much be walking you through not my theories on how someone else does their work, but literally like how I do my own work, so to speak. So that's what today's class will be focusing on. But I think the one thing that I want to stress beforehand as well, because we also have to look at the homework assignments from last week, is really there's no waiting, there's only preparation, right? Like that is very much the thing that you should be thinking about in relation to this class, especially today, is that waiting to do the project that you want to work on, waiting to like finally iterate on that dream idea is a waste of time. Because if you put that idea into practice, into iteration at the moment, right, you're going to find out more things. You're going to make more discoveries about that idea once you actually start putting something down, whether you start filming, whether you start drawing, whether you start writing, whatever it might be. And that's really what today is about. Because if you just sit on the dream idea until you finish film school or until you get your first feature, until you get your short into a festival, all those like benchmarks that you're waiting to then like work on the dream idea, then by the time you get there, the very notion of that dream idea is going to have changed. It's not going to actually be what you truly dreamt it to be, because the way that you turn those dreams into reality, right, has to do with active engagement with a process and developing a process. And to me, it is never too early to start developing a process, especially now, right? Like, it's great that you go to film school, but also, you're at a time where like the outside world is competing with you more than ever. Like 20 years ago, you go to film school because nobody's making films outside of film school. Now, you go to film school and people are making films all the time outside of this place. So like your competition is at an all-time high. So now is when you should legitimately be very much like thinking like, how do I develop my voice? And like mistakes are gonna happen along the way. There's no, like, don't wait to be perfect, right? Like iterate towards that dream of perfection. So today, we're gonna be talking about obviously repurposing and remixing and ways that you can practically do that. Because we've talked about in week 1, we talked about how film was relatively an expensive medium, right? So how do you like make films without a camera, so to speak? How do you exercise the directorial muscle? But before we do that, I wanna show that you've already started doing that with some of the work that you're obviously doing in your other classes, and hopefully with the homework assignment that you did last week, which was the easy one. Here in this opening shot, we see it says that Claudia enters her empty apartment after moving everything out from the place. She just graduated and is not ready for a new place. So I think it's interesting that we obviously have this empty space and we establish the space and the character at the same time, put the character in the center of the frame. We also show that the space is very spare. Interesting that we cut to pretty much a direct profile. Basically, camera moves about 90 degrees over here, and then we're on a medium shot here that moves with her as she walked to the window, once more seeing the view. Now, once we get to the window, we have a close-up, but what is particular about this close-up in relation to the previous 2 shots, you would say? What do you notice? Here, pass the mic to this person.
It flips the 180.
Flips the 180. Okay, great. So no, stay with that. Oh. Yeah, so flips the 180. Why? Do you agree with that choice?
Yeah, I think it shows that we're seeing like a change in her perspective, because obviously we have the captions, but like while watching it, I don't know if the intent was for like a voiceover to see this to go over, but like just seeing her walk to the window, and then when we get to the window, we're seeing like a new side of her. I think flips, like, goes with the reflective aspect of what the creator was intending.
Yeah, I think there's probably like some, with our third shot, there's some increased engagement, right? There's some increased kind of like specificity in regards to like what we're going to be maybe learning about how this character exists within this space. We also have the next shot, which could probably be the same shot. Either it could be a cut or the camera could rotate and move a little bit to the right. But it seems to be one that is sort of getting closer and emphasizing the moment that rests here. But then it says that Claudia says that she's ready. She took the last glance and then left the apartment that she lived in for 4 years. So very simple setup, very simple, scene. But I think it's interesting to think about kind of like when to cut to a close-up, when to stay on a wide, and also in some way to think about how space can inform how a character feels. I feel like this is a pretty, simple scenario, but very effective in the sense that it's like, okay, obviously there's emptiness here. The character navigates through the space. We cut in, see how they feel, and then they depart because maybe they don't want to be here anymore. So I think it's a very simple exercise, but I thought this was very clear, concise, and effective. So I would love for you to walk us through kind of your use of directional, because you didn't have descriptions here, but I feel like I had a good sense of where I was supposed to focus because of your use of arrows. So tell me about why you're moving, was this a camera movement here? Like, what exactly does this indicate?
Yeah, it's basically a still camera that's moving from left to right, that's showcasing a bookshelf and all the items in someone's room.
Okay, still camera, or you mean a static camera?
It's just camera that's in place and that's sliding.
Right, okay, so it's tracking. It's a tracking movement, right? So there's not zooming, you're not panning, you're not tilting, you're tracking. You're staying on the same track and you're moving to the right. Okay, what about here? Then you go to a Dutch angle. Why'd you go to this canted angle here?
Sorry?
Why'd you use this angle? Why did you?
Oh, I thought it'd be more like distorted to give it more of like a mysterious sense of angle.
Okay.
And also, there's a pillar in place and the camera's moving through the pillar, so you don't see the person's face as they're walking in.
Okay, very cool. And so are these two shots essentially the same? They're just different iterations of the same shot?
Yes.
It's not a cut? Okay. Then you cut to a close-up here, so this person is taking their bag, are they taking their bag or they're putting it down?
Putting their bag up.
Putting their bag up, right. Okay, and then we go back to a similar kind of composition we had in the front, and then we move leftward with them, which is interesting. My question I want to ask, which I thought was really important that you did, was you indicated how long each shot was going to last. Why did you indicate that?
I think he said that in the assignment, so I wasn't really sure. There was names of I did put up the camera names at first, the angles, but I did take them off.
You took them down, yeah. But how was it useful, I guess, to indicate how long each shot would last?
Yes.
Why?
So kind of make sure how long I want someone to see that scene or certain camera shot, because timing is kind of important to see.
Yeah.
How much, how you want the person to see for how long you want that thing to last.
Want them to be focusing. Yeah, I think it's interesting that your first shot is actually the longest one in this sequence thus far, because it seems like you're establishing the space, but once we have someone cut in, you actually pretty much have the time of your shot, right? Which is once we see action, we can kind of get a quicker sense of how things are going to be developing and we're already immersed in it. But then look again, when you return to a shot that's most similar to your last shot, which is moving in the opposite direction, you're going to increase the time a little bit. So you're going to have it be 3 seconds as opposed to 2, 2, and 2, which I thought was interesting. Okay, so she moves to the right. Why is this 10 seconds here?
Because I basically wanted that to be more of an eerie, eerie time.
Okay.
Where you just watch the girl brushing her hair. I feel like just seeing that happen for a long amount of time, it sets a very eerie tone to it, because you don't know what's going to happen. She's brushing her hair.
Okay, speak loud so the people in the back could learn from you. You're teaching them. Okay, all right, cool. So this is a tracking shot outwards, right? It seems like you're moving out. It goes from being a medium shot to a wide shot, but then you also have this dirtying the frame. It's blurred, and then you're going to rack focus to this object, right?
Yes, it's a vase.
Okay.
With flowers that are wilting.
Okay, cool. So I thought it was interesting. We're literally moving backwards, but then you do this thing here where you actually, it seems like we're moving towards her again. Now, is this obviously this is half the time, right? Even more than half the time.
Yes.
Why did you decide to go directly in the opposite direction? So she's moving across the z-axis here, just so you all know, right? Not the y-axis, not the x-axis, which obviously have to do a horizontal, vertical, but she's going into the frame, so to speak, and that would be the z-axis. So why did you decide to go outwards and then now go in the direct opposite direction here?
Because the energy or the tone of the story is changing drastically.
Okay.
And I basically wanted to make this more slow and steady, introduction to this character, and now we're getting closer and closer towards the character, and there's like a really fast switch up. So I wanted to make it more of a faster and different like change of it.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. Okay. So we move in on her. There's a tonal change in the story, and then what happens here? Has someone arrived, or is she deciding to leave?
Basically, so it quickly changes to a different like setting.
Yeah.
Instead of a girl, there's a different character. The original name of the story is called Witch Hunt. Basically, there's a witch and then there's a hunter, so it changed to the hunter. And the hunter is getting ready, basically, to hunt the witch.
Okay. What I thought was cool there is that in both scenes, it seems like you're introducing each new character through close-up. You're not actually starting on a traditional wide shot. You're starting with zipping up the coat, and previously with her, you started on an insert of her apartment or like a place in where she lives,
Yes.
right? Which was interesting. Obviously relating to space. So the hunter is going to get prepared to witch hunt, and then what exactly happens out here in this sequence?
There's another close-up, but this time it's for the witch, and they're outside in the forest. The witch is walking, and the hunter is out there like.
This is him spying on her, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you cut to his POV, which I thought was good. So you establish another close-up to establish the scene, but then you actually go to a traditional establishing shot, track leftward, gives us some time, right? We see what he's looking at. We see that he's looking, new information, looks to her, right? Why did you decide not to, you seem to not rack to her and focus though. She was always blurry.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to, because in the moment the witch ends up disappearing, so I kind of wanted to make her look more like faded, like it's very difficult for you to see her.
Okay.
And actually she does a little magic trick where she disappears, and
that's why he reacts.
Yes.
That's why he's like, whoa, she's a witch. She disappeared. Okay, cool. And so then, I was a little confused with this here. What's this ending?
Okay, basically, I don't know if I have time, but I was going to make him go out into the space where she was and look around. And I wanted it to be longer, but I wanted him to stand out there and look around and just try to process what had happened. And then the camera completely like switches and turns and blurs, to which like he would get attacked by the witch.
Okay.
Just the blackout after.
Okay. Last thing I want to ask you is, what are you trying to say in relation to the character's like experience in this physical space? Like, how does the space inform the way that you approach this exercise? Since that was kind of the overarching, assignment.
Like.
How are you like using space in this assignment? Like physical space.
I think I'm trying to use like space to give the viewer a place to think and try to understand what's going on in the environment, and also to take small pieces from the storyboard and try to piece them together and make out the character that I'm trying to show.
Okay.
Without having to say dialogue.
Cool.
Go on, explain things.
So using the location to kind of make a commentary or give us a better understanding of your character, right? Without words. Yeah, I thought it was effective, and I thought you did a good job of different shot types to really ground us in the scene. So good job.
Thank you.
All right. What we're going to talk about now is some of these presiding kind of questions that I have, which goes back to the earlier thing that I was talking about, which is like, how do I create things that are more than mere exercises, right? You're in film school right now. You have your class assignments, which is great. But how do you find a way to treat them as more than mere assignments? You're actually at an advantage to those who are either outside of school or who have graduated, because you have this direct incentive to make something that's meaningful, and your classmates are going to literally give you feedback, right? But how, when you leave, can you sort of like think about ways for anything that you're working on to be more than just an exercise, but also to be an exercise at the same time? So this goes to the other idea, which is like iterating on future artistic visions in the present, right? So it's like using your present to ideate on the future. And then goes to the third thing. These are kind of like, these are questions we'll talk about, and then we'll like basically land on each of them, which is like, how are you exercising the directorial muscle? You know, I think it's so interesting, and this is wide ranging throughout the world, the industry. I mean, people could be filmmakers, they call themselves filmmakers, but they don't spend that much time pre-visualizing. They don't spend that much time literally doing the daily work that you have to do. A lot of people spend time kind of putting their production together, getting a team together, and then when you get on set, your language is a little too conventional because you're not training yourself on like the daily process mentally of how to pre-visualize. The thing about it is obviously film is very expensive. So unless you have a studio, the way people used to do it back in the days, you have a studio, you can put the camera up in different places and sort of exercise these ideas. But not everybody can afford a studio, right? So there are ways to exercise your directorial muscle without having to go and spend money, right? So key questions to always be asking. Where do you put the camera in a given scene? Like, central question, extremely important. Basically, at any point, probably the first question you should ask, maybe after asking like, who's the main character, is where are you putting the camera? Where to put the camera is like extremely important. And there's so many different places to put the camera. But there's also like really like only one or two right answers, right? Depending on what the scene is saying. So when do you use a close-up? When do you use a wide shot? When do you use a two-shot? When do you move the camera? When do you pin? When do you pan? You know, tilt, track, zoom? All those are fundamentally different things, right? Whose scene is it, and how do you convey that this is that person's scene in comparison to another person's scene? And how do you establish visual motifs that are going to drive home what you want to say? Very, very important things to always be asking yourself. These are literally things, this wasn't hard to put together because I literally just asking the things that are like on my, like in my apartment, like as the main things to ask myself every day with anything that I'm creating. So you're discovering the essence of a theme through active iteration on a dream idea. So I don't think you should be precious with your characters, your plot lines, or your concepts, because your voice is the thing that continues giving, right? So I wouldn't worry about like, you know, ruining a great idea, like, oh, I don't have another good one. It's like, your voice is what's gonna make that idea specific to you, because we could all try the same plot line and we're gonna come up with a different film. So as long as your curiosity is leading you forward, I wouldn't try to like hoard ideas or save this for the right time, because the right time is now. And that means you should maintain a continuous loop of feedback through creation, and then putting it out in the world, working with your collaborators, showing people, seeing what they say, sending it to festivals, and like just kind of putting it out there. Okay, so to show some proof of this, our case study for today is actually gonna be a short film that I made in 2023 called Grown. I made it for various reasons. At the time I was applying for a episodic filmmaking lab, which is basically like to work in the TV space. And I felt like I needed to show that I could work on like use all the fundamentals of filmmaking practice and prove like, I know when to use a close-up, I know when to use a wide shot, I know how to make a character-driven story, but also something that's specific to my environment, my voice, right? So Grown was basically the full iteration of that. And it was a short film, and I wanted to make like a truly short film. I was like, this has to be under 10 minutes. And so that was kind of like the overall goal. I wanted it to be the type of thing that if I sent it to anybody on their phone, they could just instantly watch it and only take 10 minutes of their time. But hopefully if they were watching it 2 minutes in, they'd forget that time was passing because it was engaging. So let's look at that film, and then we'll look at some of the things that I was continuing to think about and show you how we lead towards filmmaking without a camera.
Toma que mama.
Bro, I already told you. Suelta eso. It's only like 2 days anyways.
3.
She's gonna be back soon. It's not that serious.
You always say that, bro. I don't know. You always be saying that. Like, mom, it's like, feels like when she misses. What you doing now, bro?
Yo, can I get the car ready? How are we gonna get home without it?
So just give me the money to order.
I'm gonna come with you.
Always want to be grown-ass nigga.
You want soy sauce?
Soy sauce,
Duck sauce, please.
Yeah, hot sauce as
Extra
well.
crispy, please.
Please.
All right. I don't cook it.
Okay.
Make sure it's right.
I have to. Like your watch.
Okay, good looks. ¿Ustedes van a cenar algo aquí?
Yeah, you know. I'm hungry right now.
Alguito, there you go. That's what's up. Buen provecho. Dale.
You too.
Know what I told you about that?
About what?
Hi.
There's never a reason why you should talk to the cops.
Sesame chicken with pork fried rice.
Yo, I'm talking to you still. I've been told you about that. Can I get serious with you sometimes? It's like when I talk to you, you're just not paying attention. Look, you're not even looking at me right now. Esta mañana te dije que prepare la cama, and you didn't do it. I come back home, it's still a mess.
Bro, chill, bro. That's my first time.
It's not, actually. It's like with you, I gotta repeat it. You just be jokey all the time. I don't got time for jokes.
His watch was cool. I liked it. Damn. Chill down.
I'm talking to you, you just laugh about, like, come on, bro.
So sesame
Can you
chicken.
give us a second? Like, you're not gonna get it. You never get it. Just order the food, bro. We went to the car.
Do you want to add to the order?
Yeah, sesame chicken with pork fried rice and jumbo shrimps with beef with broccoli.
Okay. Anything to drink?
No.
Okay.
How much is it?
25.
25. Yeah, I only got 20. You let that slide? Come on, just let it slide.
What's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
Good.
I'm good. You coming from school?
Yeah.
It's kind of late. Where you go to school?
Clint.
You go to Clinton. Clinton. Yo, okay. Okay, man. Look, I know some dudes that went to Clinton, man. Used to have all the baddest bitches out there. What's up, man? They still got baddies out there? I mean, you don't gotta act like you don't know.
I mean, like, they got a couple, I guess. I guess, yeah.
Oye, no te hagas inocente, loco. Ya, tiene una cara de tigre. What's up? You don't mess with the girls like that out there? What's the vibe, bro?
I mean, they
I'm playing with you, bro. I'm playing with you, man. Look, I'm gonna need you to step out the car for a second, though. I'm gonna ask you a couple questions, all right?
Well, I gotta step it up.
You'll be quick, man. You'll be all right. Let's go. Get out the car.
So the jumbo shrimp was $3 though, right?
No, it's $6.50.
But it used to be 3.
It's always been 6.
And the
Sesame chicken.
sesame chicken is 9, right?
Yeah.
Is this your car?
Yeah.
It's in your name?
Under my name? Yo, what are you even saying right
Is it
now?
registered under your name?
I have insurance.
Okay, let us see the insurance then. Registration too, go ahead.
And the beef with broccoli is $6.
No. Beef is 9. Chicken with broccoli is 6.
For real? Let me just...
You want to cancel the baby shrimp?
You say you bought it last month?
Yeah. What was the dealership? Oh, why you asking me all these questions for?
Cálmate. Cálmate, bro.
Yo, I am calm. I just want to know why you're asking me so many questions for.
Because you're driving a stolen vehicle.
So, yo, I bought this car.
Okay? Not saying you stole it, but it is stolen.
Did you buy it from a dealership?
No.
Then who'd you buy it from?
The fuck, bro?
Tranquilo, mi hermano. Just answer the question, bro.
Who would you buy the car from? Yo, I don't have to answer that.
If you don't tell us who you bought it from, then we don't know that you bought it.
This is some fucking bullshit, all right? I bought the fucking car. I bought the car.
Okay, then from who?
Hey, man, con calma. No quiero ayudar, just help. Answer the question, who'd you get the car from?
Don't touch me. Yo, don't fucking touch me. Don't fucking touch me.
Hey, I got him, man. Yeah, man. Stay right there, man. Good, we good. Now look what we doing. We're here on 157 in Courtney. We got a suspect here for a stolen vehicle. No, man. Ese es tu hermano, ¿verdad? Is that your brother? Who's at home right now? All right, look, listen. Tell mommy or papi that your brother, he was driving a stolen car, okay? He's gonna be going home with us tonight. So, you know, they gotta show up to the precinct tomorrow morning, all right? How you getting home? Hey, little man, hey.
With this film, I wanted to try to tell a story of two brothers, also a coming of age story, right? For like a kid. And also I wanted to try to tell like a parallel narrative. So I needed to visually justify all of those aspirations in the design. It's a 10-minute film, and I deliberately wanted to have the film really comprise no more than 50 shots, because I felt like I could really, I felt like that could be a justification, so to speak, for how long it is. And ultimately, it was actually even less than that, because we got rid of the final shots here, and also the this like final interaction on the top of the steps. But if you notice in the middle of the movie, right, basically at the halfway mark is when we have our first wide shot since the beginning of the film. And that was very deliberate. I wanted us to try to be as close with them as possible, so that then by the time tension is ratcheting up, we get a brief kind of like you know, break, so to speak, or rest, but also simultaneously saying that this new reality for them is they're cemented in it. And I feel like there's no better way to do that with a wide shot, static, like this is just what's happening. There's no escape, right? The camera's not moving. But if you notice, I'm with the older brother leading up to that. And then right when I get out of that wide, I go to the younger brother, right? And they're equally divisible in the middle of the movie. And this literally comes up at around 4 minutes and 55 seconds, and the movie is 9 minutes and 6 seconds. So the idea is like, where I'm gonna place this wide shot is very effectively and very intentionally put centered at the middle of the movie after I've ratcheted up tension, and then I'm gonna take it out for a second before I then move us into the overall climax of the film. So another thing that we looked at or wanted to do with any film, I always want there to be one kind of like visual choice that I'm making that is basically the equivalent of the theme. So it's like, if my theme here was ultimately that there is a reality of coming of age through these unfortunate circumstances for this young kid that is inescapable to him. So there is something that is coming for the characters that they are unaware of, but that they have no control over. And so for me, the visual choice was to zoom in on them, to use anytime the zoom camera would happen, right? Or to anytime I would zoom the camera would suggest that this like greater reality outside of them is like coming for them, so to speak. So that's why I started the movie with the zoom shot, right? Starting with them zooming outwards, right? Notice that I put color codes for my visual motif so that when I went back, right? Because it's not fully spelled out. I'm like iterating as I go, and then I'm checking my design as I go. And so when I had all my shots together, I was like, oh, okay, let me see when I actually use my zooms. And before it was actually quite a few more times in this, and I got rid of them because I was like, if my main motif is gonna come at my climax, I want it to be at the beginning and at the end of the movie, basically. And so I was like, I should only see the color orange basically at the first third of the movie and towards the latter third of the film. And if you notice, there's no color orange here at all because there's no zoom. right? We're only zooming in specific moments. And that is very key when you're on set, when maybe your DP says like, do you want to zoom? And I'm like, no, I definitely know when I am zooming and when I'm not going to zoom, because I know what a zoom means in the context of my film. I've already created a definition for that. And so that's how we use it here. And this is obviously when we come back to it. Visual stitching across scenes. This is a theory that I derived, but it's not like mine. It's just something, it's like what I call it for, I think, what works in many effective films. I remember you look at any David Fincher film and you look at how the last shot of one scene leads into the first shot of the next scene. And the idea is like those two things should be in conversation with each other. Those are the things that thread your movie together. And so if the two brothers are on opposite ends of this kind of societal spectrum, right? Then I'm gonna have the brother turn on the air, moving to the right of the frame with his hand. And then I'm gonna have the kid put down the money going to the left side of the frame. Just showing that they're on opposite ends of like reality without them knowing, but also using the fact that I'm cutting on hands to both of them to kind of stitch it together and make it feel seamless. Obviously we talked about the wide shot. And so these are all of my, kind of directorial choices in general. But the idea became after this, the idea was like, this is fun to think about and this is fun to do. The thoughts were happening regardless of whether the movie was gonna get made. The movie was supposed to be shot in June of 2023, but it ended up being shot in September of 2023 for different producerial reasons. But I didn't just sit on the film in that waiting time. I was still doing all this thinking before you go to set and you start shooting, right? And when you are doing that thinking, you're that much more prepared by the time you get to set. So the idea is, even before you have a camera, you can really design the film, right? And so how do you create opportunities for you to do that without it feeling like an exercise only? And so basically, yeah, how do I keep exercising the muscle? Now, one of my favorite artists is sitting in the room today. His name is Julian Adon Alexander. I think most of the world knows him as Snakebone online and Instagram and in the world, and the many exhibits that he's done. I discovered his work in The New Yorker. I was just reading an article one day and I went to the table of contents at the end and I was like, what is this image that is just evoking so much feeling for me, right? And I felt like there was this feeling of nostalgia for the present, which I thought was very fascinating to me when I was looking at the images. I was like, this feels like a reality that's not that far away, it wasn't that long ago. You'll notice in Julian's work when he shows you, there's a lot of objects. There's focusing on a lot of objects, physical objects that are of our time, whether it be plastic bags, whether it be, kind of like a bike handle or something like that. And I'm like, these are textures of now, but the way that they're being visualized makes it feel nostalgic to me. And that was really interesting to me in relation to this film, because I was thinking of, when I finished it, what's the poster gonna be? One of my principles always, this is the poster for the film, or the alternate posters. One of the things I always try to do is basically the poster is a way for me to collaborate with other artists, always. I hate movie posters in general. I don't like the regular movie poster. I think back in the day when they used to actually hire Saul Bass, or, well, not Saul Bass, he did the credits, but whoever these top illustrators were, in the 50s and the 60s, that was when movie posters were great because they were works of art in and of themselves. Now I feel like it's just selling the name of the actor and it just looks kind of high definition. But anytime that I make a movie poster, the idea is I want to collaborate with another artist so that a new work of art goes out into the world. So it's something that I've been doing even before, obviously, collaborated with Julian on this, or had him, he lent his talents to this. But the idea is that the art we make should beget more art. So if we have made something in the world, ideally something about it brings other art into the world from somebody else's perspective. And to me, that's how we're really actually in community as artists, and not so much in competition or whatever, but more so oh, I made a film, I really like this texture, this style, what would this artist bring to what I was trying to talk about in the film? And then what ends up happening is a new work of art, because I didn't make this, right? This is entirely of Julian's creation. But what's so cool is that in a way I'm seeing characters that I worked with or that I thought about, in a context that I'd never seen them before, right? But in a way, it's almost like I'm learning about what I was trying to express through this collaboration. So, you know, the art that we make should always beget more art. This is something I did with Clifford Thompson on my feature film, Verde, and it's also something I did in my latest film with the Barbadian artist, Shari Phoenix for Evening Prayer. So the thought was, how do I iterate on ideas? How do I keep working the muscle if I have to like wait to make my next film? To go back, this film cost like $40,000, right, to make. So it's like, you got to raise the 40,000, you got to prepare, you got to set a schedule. Like, you know, we wrote this, you know, maybe like I think over the summer, and then we shot it in the fall, but that's like June to November. So it's like, this was what, June to October, right? So it's like, and that's just shooting, because then you have to edit it. So in all that time, you're making one movie. But in your mind, what about all the other ideas you have? How do you iterate on those ideas? And so for me, I was just thinking, I was like, how do I like make something, right, that feels like a film but doesn't feel like an exercise? And I was very inspired by this collaboration, because I was just like, I think it turned out so well. And I was like, what if something that I've written, if I show it to Julian, maybe he'll, you know, fuck with the idea enough and be like, okay, that's cool, like maybe we could try it out. And so I thought, I was like, let me take something that I've been working on for a while. It was, again, a dream project, a dream idea, like, oh, I don't know when I'll ever make that, right? And maybe it will be a film one day, but like for now, we're still gonna make it a film like before it's a film, so to speak. And so what I took was a concept that I had called MYRON, which is named after my father, rest in peace. It was just it was a graphic novel that was very like sprawling, so to speak, but I only called it a graphic novel because I was supposed, like, that's the only thing I had to call it. But to me, it's really a film, like more than anything, because I don't know how to make graphic novels. I don't know how to make anything other than a film. So to me, like anything I make is just gonna be a film. And so MYRON is a 12-issue graphic novel set in the Bronx across two timelines, 2018 and 2048. It follows the rise of a Dominican youth gang into a feared syndicate and a transformation 30 years later into a radical activist cell. Blending hyperrealism, speculative architecture, and Afro-Caribbean identity, the work explores legacy, power, and survival in a city on the edge. So that's like the big idea. That's like the, you know, write that dream into reality, right? Like that's like scary to have to do, right? But then it's like, over time, you can like dedicate yourself to doing it and, you know, put in the practice, or put the work in the practice. So I want to show you our collaborative process before handing it over to Julian, because I want to show you how the filmmaking and that thinking that came from the storyboards is literally translating into a graphic novel. But for me, it's literally just another film, because I know nothing about making a graphic novel. And so there's a few things here which are interesting, which is like, I'm still approaching the scene as if I'm shooting it, right? I mean, I'll read graphic novels, I'll read comics and try to get some information about, like, generally, am I more or less doing the right thing? Like, you know, I can't entirely break the rules. But again, my instinct to put this first panel here as a wide isn't coming from, you know, the way you're supposed to start off a scene in a graphic novel. It just comes from me feeling like, okay, if I'm starting a scene that's steeping us in a memory, I'm gonna start on this wide shot before I go to a close-up of my main character. I'm also gonna put my main character on the left side of the screen, or see, it's not, the page is the screen for me, but like the left side of the page, because I want it to be like consistent all throughout. I wanna basically be tracking him on this side, like subliminally, I'm like, maybe it's like if I treat page placement, if I treat the placement of my character across the page like blocking, then that's the same way I would block a character in a film. I try to keep him on the same side of the frame until he purposefully, or she purposefully, or they purposefully move to the right side or to another direction. And so, but I want to show you how through collaboration we kind of get to the real essence of it, because I wanted to show these youth members together on the steps. Then I wanted to show the entrance of their gang leader kind of coming and then calling attention to them and then showing them this, something that he found on his phone, which is like problematic for them, and that's how the plot starts. But I remember Julian telling me, like, it's just so much to do on the first page. Like, we need to like have time to give like breathing for certain elements, and like also to just sit with whoever our main character is. Like, if you introduce two characters on the first page, it's like, it's too much information, right? So it's, in a way, it's almost like trimming down, asking me to cut away elements. And so this was Julian's thumbnail sketch, because it's usually how I'll do the panel and then he'll do the thumbnail and then we go to the actual page. And so he simplified it, right? We kept the wide, we focused on this slap boxing that the two guys are doing. Then one guy gets upset that he got hit, and then we rest on our main character, right? We kind of like establish this setting, the situation through action, and then we end our frame with our main character. But the question was, we still have the entrance of this leader, right? So the next thing became, how do we introduce this leader? So we thought it'd be cool if we see him coming down the steps, right? That's what happened in the script. So initially the first pass was like to have him stepping on these like steps in this way, but I felt like maybe that wasn't enough emphasis in a way. It was like, what are we focusing? Are we focusing on them, or are we focusing on the steps? So then we split the first panel in two and created close-ups on the feet, and then obviously use these exclamation points to show their reaction. Okay? So going back to what we were talking about with, is it, what's your name again? Yes. Alia. We were talking about Alia, how Alia was starting scenes with close-ups, or certain scenes with close-ups, certain scenes with wides. This is later in the piece. We see them outside, we see this scene of the city, right? Before returning to them in a very intimate setting, right? This is the first time we're ever gonna see these two members of the gang together, laying in bed together, shirtless, right? And so we learn this other element of who they are together, their vulnerability, their sexuality. And we notice that we cut to the parent of the man who's being cradled, or no, sorry, we cut to this, that's his dad. And we see that the only time that they can pretty much be together in this way, kind of freely, is when the other figures in their lives are basically asleep or unaware of the way that they are existing, right? And so I do that, but then I do a time jump, and I start my scene by basically having a close-up on a nail clipper to show that time has passed. Again, all things that I would do in a film, same way I would direct the scenes in a film. And this is obviously how it turns out, because we plan it out, and then obviously Julian's perspective, Julian's skill and craft over time is what brings it into the full reality that we want. This is, to me, what makes it a movie, oddly enough. Like, I think this is what conceptually, like, the filmmaker tries to like put the idea out, then this becomes the movie, because this is like, to me, this is like a cinematic perspective, right? And so that's ultimately where we land. Also, last thing I want to point out about not being too precious is I believe characters can reincarnate across narratives. Like, there's a character in our novel called Juan, but like Juan is basically, like, he's basically just Emmanuel from the short, but then he's also not Emmanuel from the short, right? Like, he doesn't have the same name, but I think his ethos, his spirit, his sensibility can exist across many projects, right? To me, it's like, I don't mind if there's this odd, like, authentic version of the Marvel Universe in whatever we're doing, because the Marvel Universe is authentic, but it depends on what you're reading. But I don't mind if there's this kind of like odd kind of repurposing of characters, as long as like I believe every one of their experiences, right? Obviously, some of their names will be different, but I think sensibility and who your characters are can start to kind of bleed across time frames. So that's really the idea here. I want to also now obviously speak to the artist that we've been referencing to, and kind of give like a proper introduction. Julian is a Queens-based illustrator. I think that was one of the things that really drew me to his work. I felt like there was a deep understanding of New York in it, especially in the textures. And he seeks to tell relatable stories of the many ways human emotion can manifest itself in the physical world. He creates visual metaphors using imagery from various forms of his favorite media and observations of everyday things and people that one might walk by without paying attention to, kind of like this quote unquote mundane, but he finds a way to like adorn that in beauty. He's received his BFA in illustration from the School of Visual Arts and has illustrated for numerous clients such as the New Yorker, the NBA G League, and Nike. He's also exhibited in numerous venues such as the School of Visual Arts, Swivel Gallery, and Ross Kramer. And he most recently published his first monograph, right? Yeah. Yeah, which is like just so dope. Incredible collection of all his work over the past 5 years, I think?
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years of practice. Like 5 years of practice, And like, to me, that's also, you'll see, but like, that's such an example of like what you can achieve if you quite literally like put your, like just work on your craft essentially, right? Like, I'm sure there's gonna be many other monographs over time, right? So it's like, but that's a 5 years worth of work and iteration.
My name's Julian. I'm an illustrator. It was a real journey to end up where I'm at now. So I'm gonna just kind of like, first I'm gonna show you some of the things I work on, what my work looks like, and then we're gonna talk about practice, how it came to be. So this is like the general vibe. A lot of my work, this is like a personal piece, but a lot of them are like graphite on tone paper, done with like a mechanical pencil. A lot of them are 8 by 8 or 8.5 by 11 or smaller, and that size was a very intentional choice. A lot of that comes from the fact that like the first paper that y'all drew on was probably 8.5 by 11 inches. I don't know what for like anyone from another country, it's like the other standard sizing. Unfortunately, I'm not as cultured as I should be, but yeah, that size was like an automatic choice. It felt very accessible, and something that Alfonso was talking about earlier was like nostalgia for like a present time. I feel like that size, no matter what you're doing on that size, you're doing a drawing on an 8.5 by 11 paper, you're kind of evoking a very familiar feeling, I think, for a lot of people. This is sketchbook work. There's a lot of like collage elements that are starting to come in at this point. Paneling, sampled imagery from like comic books and video games and pop culture and things like that, which I'll also talk about. And a lot of them do have like very real settings. So I'm also from New York, grew up in Brooklyn, and like, I don't know, I feel like there's a very specific like distinct identity to that I'm personally very proud of, and I feel like is not necessarily going away, but definitely should be preserved. Like, I think a lot of people, like, I'll go somewhere and I'll go to a party and they're like, where are you from? And I'm like, Brooklyn. They're like, really? I'm like, bro, you're in Brooklyn right now. Like, what are you talking about? And that's also something that I connected with Alfonso on, like, working on the project. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but, New York stories are, like, really close to my heart. Yeah, so this is where you first saw my work, was in the New Yorker. This was like one of the first big illustration projects I got after graduating. And it was pretty cool. It was a big opportunity. Super quick turnaround. That's where I learned how to like work fast. You had to get that shit done like immediately. Came from, these were like really like the first jobs that I was doing that weren't like publications. But it's a lot of like music. I work with a lot of musicians. So I was doing these album covers. Some of them were painted back when I used to paint, but I kind of moved away from that. And I'll talk about that. That was another like conscious decision that I made. This was a music project that I worked on that ended up becoming like a physical vinyl. I was able to like design the package for that. So that was just really cool because we love physical media here. And this is important. So this was my first solo gallery show. This was in Brooklyn. I remember when this happened, I met with the curator. He came to my apartment and he was asking, like, basically, what do I have to show? And it started with like I had a whole bunch of paintings. Like I kind of thought that you had to be a painter in order to exist in a gallery. I had these like huge paintings. They were super colorful. Subject matter wasn't like super different from what it looks like now, but it was definitely different, and it was definitely like made with a little bit more of a market in mind. And when I had like a couple of these drawings, those small drawings that I showed you earlier, and like, I kind of just suggested them. I was like, hey, maybe we could show like, I don't know, 2 or 3 of these, put them in a corner. But I had so many of them, and I was like clearly a lot more passionate about those than the paintings. So he was like, just show those. Like you can do the whole show as that, right? So after I kind of got that permission, it like spiraled, and I just kept going. And I felt like through multiple iterations of that same like concept, I was able to get to a level of depth that I couldn't have if I was trying to do everything. This was the same exhibition, but we were able to take it to Tokyo for a group exhibition, which was pretty cool. Got to travel. And this was kind of a similar take on it. This was something I did recently for an art fair. And the exhibition was really cool. So these pieces that you see are each held in like transparent frames. And throughout the course of the show, we would like swap out what pieces were in there. So there's actually, I don't remember how many are on that wall, but there's like hundreds of them that, if you go to the show on different days, the experience would be totally different. So I thought that was a really cool design. And it kind of plays off of the quantity concept. That's like a big thing for me, is that I actually, in some ways, value quantity more than quality, because I think it's really important to keep going on something and like continue to make a lot of stuff so that you don't, get frozen on trying to quality control everything and end up not really getting anything done, And this is my first monograph, which is crazy. It's like kind of the definition of that quantity thing. It's like a very thick book. There's a lot of,
It's like 400 pages, right?
it's a lot. It's heavy. It's like over the last 4 or 5 years, it's like a compilation of all the drawings I've been making. Actually, not all of them, but a good chunk of them. And I just think it's important to have that type of thing documented and like collectible in a like real way. I think, not to say that collecting original art isn't real, but it's not like relatable to me, because I make these pieces and you gotta pay rent, you gotta survive. So I'm marking it at a certain price point, but that's not something that I would really be able to collect tangibly. And as a kid, it's like you collect comic books, you collect like vinyl, CDs, things that you can actually buy without being rich, and kind of like viewing that as art collecting was a really big thing for me. So this was an honor to work on. And then another book is this one, which we're working on together. It was already introduced a little bit, but this is just some of the other pages that we worked on. I think, this one on the right is actually the first page, the introduction of that character, Juan. So you get to see like from the storyboard to like the finished piece. There's a lot to say about it. There's like almost too much to say about it, because I know I don't have forever, but I think this was just like an amazing project. Again, comic books are like a very natural language for me. So it just made a lot of sense. And then when he came to me with this story, I was blown away by it. Like it has like all the emotional beats. It has everything. In terms of like that nostalgia for the present, what I think is really interesting is that it follows characters throughout different points in their lives. So as they're growing and maturing, and things that were once priorities to them are not really as important at all. I wanted to make something that they're not like looking down on the past. It just is what it is. In that time, it was very real. And I wanted to treat it with a certain sentimentality. And that's kind of how I approach everything I do. So this is the part where I'm going to talk about my creative philosophy and practice. Every day, like daily practice is a really important thing to me. I think quantity, not only does it allow me to not be paralyzed and prevented from making stuff, it allows me to world build. So while I don't have like, I'm not writing a comic. I mean, he's writing it, but I'm not writing a comic. In my personal work, though, I'm doing something that I think is somewhat related. It has a lot to do with world building and like fleshing out a setting and establishing certain rules. So there's a clear visual identity, and there's like a vehicle for storytelling. So a lot of these are like very small images. You can see the light switch in the bottom left for scale. But this is like a wall in my apartment that I just kind of like to look at as I'm working on things. I'll just put things up and take them down and rearrange. Develop like relationships between certain pieces. But the important thing is just like making a lot of stuff, because over time you'll be able to notice certain patterns and then do things with them. Here's like a sketchbook page. I think keeping a sketchbook is really important. Now this is probably the most, like the least glamorous part, but I'm literally just walking around taking pictures like constantly. I think it's just an exercise in like being present. But being present is, I think, where a lot of good art comes from. So going outside, living my day-to-day life, not really intentionally going out of my way to do things I wouldn't normally do, but just trying to make sure my eye is just constantly open when I'm doing it. This is like, these bikes, these delivery bikes to me, I didn't really think about it, but they're actually very, I don't know, you don't pay attention to those, right? It's like, it's winter. And you see people like put these gloves and these bags all over their bikes. And it's like, we're constantly delivering food. We're relying on these people. But a lot of times nobody's like thinking about the delivery driver, the person who's doing that job. But that's like, it's like a superhero to me. You know what I mean? So I kind of wanted to like pay tribute to those vehicles. Like it's like they're like royal steeds, like carriages, you know what I mean? I wanted to like show how beautiful that really is and how much of a real experience that is. So that was like a series I did, just taking pictures of those every day, kind of like changing things, rearranging things, but trying to set it and ground it in a very real space. And then what happens is you start to like, if you do enough observation, then you develop the confidence to like change things. So I'm changing the angle, you know, there wasn't a house. These were like conjoined homes that you see a lot. And then I took this one and like, you know, shaved off the side. So say it's like on the corner of the block or there's like an empty lot next to them. Now I'm putting a person in it, stuff like that. But as you start to play and you allow yourself to have that element of play through making a lot of stuff, you get some interesting compositions. And then you're able to like tell stories with them. So it starts with just kind of like boring observation. Then you develop your visual language from that. So one of the things that I think is really interesting is metaphor. I think a lot of my practice actually owes itself to like music, like specifically hip hop. Like spoken word can do so much. There's like constantly so many metaphors and like turns of phrase that are really interesting to me. So what I thought was cool was like braids, right? It's just a protective style. Like when you're wearing braids, you can protect your hair from the elements, breaking the ends and all that. But I thought it was interesting in a way where I could use that to kind of tell the story. So it's just a portrait, but like I wanted to create like an introverted energy. So this person is not really meeting the camera. Their braids are concealing, you know, protecting their hair, but they're also not, they're protecting themselves from the viewer in a sense. So with the composition, I wanted to make things that felt kind of like, in a sense, maybe guarded, but also like very safe. Right here, I did the same thing with like Canada Goose, like Montclair and North Face, like you see these all over the place. And it's, you know, it gets cold here. We'll see how much longer it's gonna get cold because it's like 80 today and it's October and I don't know what's going on. But I thought was really interesting was I started to notice about myself is that I love cold weather. And I realized that, one, I just like being cool, but one of the things I really like about it is like being able to hide my silhouette. So like when I'm wearing a big jacket, my body looks the same as the next person who's wearing that jacket. And in a sense, if you're like an introverted person, that becomes a suit of armor for you. And I thought that was just an interesting thing to kind of play on. So here I'm kind of making work that's framing the coat as like a suit of armor. Like if y'all ever go to the Metropolitan Museum and you see those empty night suits, that's kind of how I wanted to make this series. And I made a bunch of them. And then what happens is I started to do things with quantity. So if I've made a bunch of those, I'm projecting a certain energy in the work. People know it a certain way. And then what happens when I flip it? Now you have somebody facing the camera. It's in the same setting. You can tell he's wearing a coat. You can tell that there's cold air. You know, there's whatever you call it, the condensation coming from his breath. But the image is like super, it does the opposite thing. And I think this image by itself might not be as powerful outside of the context of the other ones that came before it. So it's kind of like quantity storytelling. And in a sense, like comics, it's like a time-based medium. There's an anime character in there too. I hear some of y'all, I know y'all probably might know who that is. That character, his name is Josuke. He's from this anime called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And he's like a protagonist. He's like a super masculine, like hero type of figure. So again, if you know who that is, it kind of like furthers that metaphor. And I'll talk about that too, because the anime does come back. Oh, whoops. I'm talking about that now, I guess. Accessibility, that's super accessible to me. I think when I was in art school, part of the issue that I had with maybe almost like a barrier to me finding myself or like finding my creative voice was that I was kind of narrow-minded about what art, quote, air quotes, could be. So I kind of thought that like, if I'm going to be in a gallery, if a gallery is approaching me for a show, I need to make these paintings and they need to be serious. And I don't think my work is unserious. I think my work is actually like sometimes too serious, like may even take itself too seriously, but I'm trying to strike the balance. But a lot of the imagery in like mass produced media, like comic books, manga, anime is like kind of looked down on in a certain way in that context. And I really wanted to push against that. I think I could make images that are sophisticated but draw from these types of things that are very real to me. Like this is, like I said, this is my first exposure to collecting artwork. It's like what I can get. So as I start to sample, another thing that comes from hip hop, I talked about turn of phrase and visual language and metaphor, but also the concept of sampling. The whole genre of hip hop is based off of like flipping records and recontextualizing. So now I'm sampling from other things. I'm sampling from anime. So this piece is about like, how people will like have these collections of like toys, like models, like figurines and stuff. And what I thought was interesting was that in a sense they are just pieces of plastic, but there's like a real like sentimental connection between these people and these collections of things that they have. So I sampled the empty speech bubble to kind of allow us to see that this person is trying to say something. What they're saying is completely left up to interpretation because it's empty. But it might be, the suggestion is that the connection between this person and their toy is like something that can't even be put into words. It's like just a way of expressing themselves. Same thing here. I'm pretty cool. I'm a chill dude. Like I'm pretty reasonable. I like to imagine like cool on the surface, but a lot of, we deal with things. We deal with anxiety. We deal with fear of mortality. There's a graveyard in the bottom left of this. So you start to see that. Is another character from JoJo's here that is like he's the complete opposite of the other character. He's like a super like, he's scared of everything. And that was a cool thing about his journey was that he kind of learned to overcome that. But in the real world, there's somebody holding up a peace sign to project like being okay, everything is cool. And then in their internal world, you start to see that might not necessarily be the case. Same thing. So now I'm playing with like, before I had these things in like a spiritual sense, like they're not really there. It's kind of a cross between the internal and the real world. And now we're starting to see somebody engaging with these things in reality. This one is one of my favorites. This is one of my favorite things I've ever made. It's also super New York, right? It's super New York. It's got the architecture. It's got like, it looks like the neighborhoods I grew up running around in. Super special to me. So when I got out of college, I was going through it. I graduated 2020, and a lot of the things that we kind of thought were supposed to be happening for us were not really happening. I had my own situations financially, all type of debt, all type of crazy shit going on. And then you have this game that comes out called Animal Crossing. Was New Horizons? I think it's New Horizons is like the one that everyone was playing on the Switch. That was really interesting, right? Because there's this game where people are like super into it and the world is literally like on fire around them and they're escaping into this video game. But in the game, there's a character who you owe money. Like he loans you property and you spend a good chunk of the game paying him back. And I'm like, that's not crazy? I'm like, bro, I got that in real life right now. So I kind of hated that. But one of the things that was interesting was there's something that happens where you are so overwhelmed by like your current circumstances that you just allow yourself a little sweet treat. So I would constantly be going to buy myself like sugary drinks. And I have in the bottom left like a stamp card from a bubble tea place where I was going all the time while experiencing like very real financial situations. So it's kind of interesting. This was a piece where I was able to like, I think I struck the balance successfully of like joking, but like, nah, I'm so serious. And I think that's like, there's a lot of interesting things that happen in that. This is a t-shirt I made. I talked about, accessibility and like relatability in a sense. I don't know. I just think fashion can be art and not necessarily even high fashion, like streetwear or like you could find something thrifting that's really cool. And I want to make sure that people who can't necessarily afford original pieces from me can afford something. You can get a book. You can't afford a book, get a t-shirt. You know what I mean? This is just the homies. My friends get to wear them. So I love that. Love that, right? Because they can't always like afford thousands of dollars worth of like some original art print sign. You know what I mean? But I don't think that means anyone should be excluded. And although this is something that is mass produced, like the t-shirt is something that you can make a lot of. I don't think that makes them any less of something to value, so quantity again is okay. It's fine. This is just another like way for me to push that concept. So I'll do prints, I'll do Patreon, stuff like that. And that's kind of like my whole ethos. And I'm excited to talk to y'all some more. Thank you.
What's cool about where your work has arrived is it's almost like you like literally the storytelling happens within like a broader context. So if you haven't seen like the show or like even like the stamp card from the bubble tea spot,
right.
Like it's like literally like I can appreciate it if I just look at it on surface value. But then if I know the context, then it's like that much better. Like, do you feel like you're going to continue to keep almost like doing that kind of world building as you move forward?
Definitely. I think, again, like that's, like we said, that's something that kind of only comes from quantity. And it's like, when you approached me to work on the comic book, I was really excited for two reasons. One, I just thought the script was really good. And the second reason was that I've always wanted to do that. Like I've always wanted to write a comic, but I didn't feel like I had a good enough understanding of like how to craft a narrative that makes sense. But I inherently knew like the world that I wanted it to live in.
Yeah.
So what I realized is that I think we have like some type of similar mindset in, even though I don't have like a background in film, I kind of do think of my art as like a time-based thing. Like I'm really interested in what's going to happen over time. And I'm almost, like more excited by that than like making one piece that's really impactful,
Yeah, I mean, what is cinema? What kind of medium is it? What is it?
What I said?
No. I just want to see if they know. What are the two things? Time and space, right? It's a time and space medium. They're probably tired of me telling them that, but like we're asking them that. But it is, right? Like time is so key. Like in your work, I think like that's, to me, they're steeped in time. Like it's like, but quite literally, even you telling us about your process, where they come from literal moments of you in time taking a photo, 100%. Then you repurpose that. It's like. That to me, that's part of why it feels so in time. Like it's like cemented in a moment that maybe just happened 5 days ago, but now it's like the past.
I have titles of pieces that come from like jokes, like inside jokes or like conversations with friends that like actually become more meaningful to me also as time goes on.
Yeah.
Because it's like you look back on it, you're like, damn, that person, like our relationship is different now or like such and such. And I think it's really cool to like I think it's really cool to, bear with me for a second. I think it's cool to treat things, like to actually be present and like treat things with, like treat everything with the same weight.
Yeah.
Maybe like because you never really know. So you got what you have right now, and that's in a sense the only thing that's like really real. And I think that's something that I really want to always carry in my art.
Yeah, last one I'll ask before I open it up to you guys is in our project MYRON, it takes place across 2048 and 2018. So 2018 we do kind of in the style that you've established, and 2048, like literally, I think I called you one time and I was like, I don't even know what 2048 is going to look like. Like, how should we? I actually didn't know, and then we sort of thought about like ink, and we thought about a different, just like more distorted kind of perspective, which I think they saw a little there. Like, how do you approach, I guess, like even just thinking about your style, but applying it to like a different time period, and even doing ink-based stuff, which you've done, but which a lot of the world knows you more for the graphite on tone paper.
I think the common thread is that even though it's like there's graphite, I think it's very like line based anyways. It's not, it can like vary, but I think a lot of my work is not like super painterly. So it translated like pretty naturally in that sense. And I think I didn't have to do, it wasn't as scary of a change as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Like as we're doing it, I'm like, oh no, you get a sense of like what it's gonna look like, and you'll be able to kind of predict. I think you talked about like when you sent me something, you were like, I think I know what this is going to look like in his style.
Yeah.
And I was able to like eventually over time do that too. But just approaching it with like an understanding of the narrative reasons really helped. Because I remember we talked about how the fact that it's in 2048, these characters have matured and they've been through things and they've had time to process. And so now their vision is like clearer. Yeah. And the lines are sharper.
Yeah.
So always like keeping the narrative reasons in mind kind of like keeps the whole thing intact for me. And it just like there's intentionality behind everything that I really love.
And it was crazy too, is I remember there was something I was noticing in the initial pages you were bringing, and like a lot of people's eyes were closed, and I was I was like, should I tell them to open their eyes? And I was like, nah, like this is a memory, so like low key, it could just be like a slight suggestion that like. It's almost like a faded, like, almost like you're falling asleep, like remembering this like past,
Yeah.
Yeah. So very cool.
It did end up working.
I just want to start off by saying that like I really, really like all of your work. Like it's all just so amazing and beautiful.
Thank you.
But I think a question that came up, especially when you were talking about that last piece that was like Animal Crossing New Horizons, how do you like find the motivation to make art when you're like dealing with these life challenges? Because I know you said that like daily practice is a big part of like becoming the artist that you want to become. So how do you like find the motivation to make art during those times?
I said before, so like I said, I put an emphasis on like presence, and I was saying like the present is the only thing that's real, which I think helps me in a sense, but it also is scary, right? Because if the present is the only thing that's real and the present is fucked up, right? Then what do we have, right? I guess it's just like a shift. It's like a shift in perspective, just making sure that like I understand that while the present is real and I do have to get up every day and like do what I have to do, there is something else. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's good or bad, but there is something else. And for that reason, we have to document it. Like, we have to, because there won't be anything else to look back on if we don't kind of make that choice. And I think what helped me to be able to do it, that's the philosophy, but what helped me to be able to actually do it is kind of like just shifting my mindset. So I talked about like how I do try to value quantity over quality. Because some days you're not going to be able to get something good done, but I don't think that means you shouldn't do anything. Because it's really easy to find reasons to not do things, and that will add up, So that's what's been helping me.
First, I just wanted to thank you so much for your insight. Not just getting to look and break down your work, but also on like your outlook kind of on creativity and bringing your own kind of personal life and emotional aspect to that. A question I have, and I think you kind of touched on it a bit in one of these last questions here, but have there ever been like moments or like periods where you felt almost very creatively kind of stuck, or like you're kind of like get into a habit or a pattern that, let's say, you like eventually get kind of tired of, and then what do you do to kind of break out of that place, or what do you do while you're in that place, and what's your kind of outlook on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's where presence takes two different meanings. So it's, you could be present with the work, and then at some point you gotta like live a life to make work about. So I just go outside like a little bit, just a little bit, like not too much, just not too much. But I think like I said, like a lot of, I have piece titles that are from like, I had a conversation with my friend and they said something and I was like, damn, that's tough. And I just like tucked it away and didn't think about it. But I think like you have to kind of just maybe try not to shame yourself about it so much, and kind of just go outside and live a full experience and just have what's in front of you and value it. I think a lot of times we don't value something because it's like we're not creating, or we don't think that what's around us is like interesting, but it definitely is. You just can't tell now. You know, you just don't know at the moment. And that's how I try to think of it. But I struggle with that too. Like, I'm not saying I'm immune to that, but these are the things I try to tell myself, you know?
I love your artwork. It's so amazing.
Thank you.
I love the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure too.
Thank you.
But yeah, I really love artworks that like kind of blend between like reality and like imagination that we consume through media. And I just like to ask, because you combine like pictures you're taking yourself with like pictures from popular media, like and like you have a very hyper-realistic style. So how do you kind of like develop your own style in where you're not like directly copying from the photo and like trying to make it look like something you created and not like.
Yeah, I guess it's just recontextualizing. In illustration, there's a thing like when I worked with the New Yorker, one of the first projects I did, there was a show at Yankee Stadium for the 50th anniversary of hip hop. And it was like Snoop Dogg, Lil Wayne,
Fat Joe, right?
Fat Joe, I think, Run DMC. Like, it was a whole bunch of like acts. And I had to draw multiple iterations of these people. But everybody knows what Lil Wayne looks like, right? And there's multiple photos of him, but you can't draw those photos because photographers have those and they have the copyright to those photos. So I can't like draw from the exact image. What I've found is like taking moving images. Like if you watch a video of somebody, you'll get an image of their face or like a better understanding of how their face moves. And you do it enough and you could eventually do it from like imagination. So yeah, I just pay attention to like, I try to catch things in transition, in flux. And that usually helps me to like insert my own style onto it. I also just don't like posed images for the most part. Like usually they feel kind of like, I like candid stuff, you know?
What would you say is the piece of media that influenced you the most? And also, are you going to watch Steel Ball Run when it comes out?
Of course, of course. Of course, I'm like wearing a suit to the living room to watch that. Nah, but I don't know. I don't think I can answer that question. I don't know if it's like one piece of media. I think I keep saying presence. I keep coming back there, but I just try to watch everything with like my mind all the way on, even if it's kind of like dumb. Like I'll be watching like Family Guy and I'm like, okay, what are we saying about family dynamics? And so certain things, it's like, so if I draw Peter Griffin, it's not necessarily always a joke. Like I could be dead ass serious, but also that's just my frame of reference. You know what I mean? Like I'm being genuine, I'm being vulnerable. I think the issue is that sometimes people like see something that's like kind of funny and then they just write it off. But I would try to encourage you to not do that. If that's, I hope that makes sense. But there have been several like pieces of media that have influenced me. Off the top of my head, I think Samurai Champloo is pretty crazy. If y'all know what that is. That's an anime that like effectively blends like hip hop culture and like traditional hip hop culture, like the elements. So it's like graffiti, breakdancing, MC, and like all that with like feudal Japan, which shouldn't make sense on paper, but is insane. And I would recommend y'all check it out.
What I thought was really interesting was a lot of it, I mean, not all of it, but a lot of it seems really steeped in reference.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was interesting when you do that, because, you know, I was grinding Animal Crossing, like I've been playing off those dead, so I really got that, and I thought that was funny, and I got what you were trying to say. But also, I've never seen JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, so for that, I'm not sure if I would have gotten what was intended without your explanation.
Right.
And so my question is, as an artist, when you're thinking about this, are you worrying about that? Are you, and from that side, are you really making this art for an audience, assuming that they will get it, or are you making it for yourself and hoping that they see it as an extension of what you like and what you understand?
I think it's really, I like to, I'm really just doing it for myself, but I think in like zeroing in and like being hyper specific and doing things for yourself, that is actually, I think, like one of the most important things you can do, because you can't please everybody. And I've tried to, and it doesn't work. You know, I think I'm okay with people not understanding the reference, but I do want to make things that are on two levels. So it's like supposed to be an interesting image. And if you want to delve further into it, you can. But you don't have to. It can exist in your subconscious. So I'm not like super concerned with people understanding all of the references. A lot of times they're layered too. So you might just get one of them. Because even in that piece, there's the fact that piece, the JoJo piece that we talked about, is really impactful because it exists in the context of like several pieces that are like the opposite. So when you see it, it like catches your eye. Yeah, so there should be multiple references, and in some sense there's something for everybody. But what's most important is just being like genuine as possible, and like if it's okay if not everybody gets it, because maybe one person will.
I was just wondering, like, you know, like how you started in drawing and art and stuff, and where your love of that comes from.
Yeah, I mean, I was always doing it from a child. Like there's a sense where it was not even something I could like control. Like I was going to do it anyways, but then I would just be exposed to certain things. So like when I go to comic book shops, I'll go to like all these spots in the city, and I'm like, damn, that's like crazy. Like people actually get paid to write these books and like doodle. That was pretty cool. I also think, you know, my dad was in graphic design, so he's not in fine art, but I would look at what he's doing and I'm like, no, he's definitely an artist, even though some people might not always see it that way. So that was, I guess, since I was from a young age, I just kind of had like a more like balanced understanding of what art was. I think a lot of times people who don't, maybe their families wouldn't understand or like encourage it. They're like, oh, that's not art. This is art. I never really like was taught to think that way. So I was pretty privileged to like grow up open-minded, I would say, in that way. And then I just followed it, you know.
I loved how your art really gives this like balance between accessibility and like that personal aspect, which you talked about drives a lot of your artistic process. And I was wondering how like working on a collaborative project, for example, like the graphic novel, transforms that artistic process, and like to approach it from a different way to begin with, because like the ideas that you're like drawing art come from Alfonso's concepts.
I mean, honestly, luckily he's from New York, so I remember one of the things we talked about was like, there's a scene where they're slapboxing in the beginning. Yeah. And I think some people don't know what slapboxing looks like, but there's a stance. Yeah. There's like, that's like a very specific reference. So I think we had like some similar reference points that automatically made sense. So I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have to do a lot of heavy lifting for that. I was just more so happy to be working on that. Was very blessed. But I guess in the sense that like you don't always get like those type of situations, like you don't always get people who have like the same reference point, or their vision is like something totally different than what yours would be. I don't I don't have real advice for that. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's just more so like you just do what you have to do. I think what's important though is like allowing myself to like play. Like you do have deadlines and you do like there's times that things have to be done, but just making sure that like maybe you take an idea and you just stretch it to its furthest possible concept. And you can rein it back later, but I think it's better to just do something wild and then just see what happens. Because they'll tell you no. A good art director will try to rein you back in. That's their job too.
Is there times where you look at something you make and you hate it or you don't like it? What do you think about or what do you do to it to move forward and kind of continue improving your craft?
So there's like a real answer, and then there's the inspirational answer.
You should give both.
The real answer is I'll be in the crib like staring over the desk with my with the back like as like in shrimp posture, like I'm like hunched over the desk, and I'm like at the desk all the time, hurting my eyes, like until it gets done. Like I can't get up until it gets done, and there's like things going on around me. My girl's like, "Yo, what are you doing? We got to eat dinner." It's not good because I can get obsessive about things. If I don't like it, I'm like I don't feel good going to bed until it's done, and I'm aware of that, and I'm trying to fix that. The inspirational answer, is it's like very important to the context in which you do something is equally, if not more important than like the work itself. So like it might actually be really good. You just aren't looking at it with the right eyes. So you kind of might have to go away and like have an experience and then come back, but just file it away and maybe try not to like carry so much shame. I think like in art making, and especially when you start doing art for money, it's like it becomes your profession. The word should comes up a lot, and eventually that word will stop serving you, if that makes sense. I think it just is what it is, and that might be good and it might be bad depending on how you're looking at it. So I would just like file it away and come back later, you know.
Everything you said about your artistic philosophy and practicing every single day, it reminded me of this random quote I saw on a billboard once that said, "Life is short, eternity isn't." And as an artist, the way I interpreted it was that everything you create with your short life is kind of a permanent like mark of your eternity. And your work, the way that you approach it, like with this constant, just like this loyalty of like showing up, just doing the thing, and almost like when you said there's something about the present that we don't even fully understand yet, there's a way of conveying that like in a tangible way that is eternal. And I think that's awesome. But the last thing, okay, this is my question.
Thank you, I really appreciate the words though.
You talked about shifting your perspective and how that helped you a lot as an artist and to actually create. And I also relate to that a lot in my life. I wanted to ask what exactly motivated you to make that like clear shift in perspective, and if there are any practices that help ground you in the present and in like showing up in that way for yourself in a healthier way. Thank you.
Yo, see, do you see what happens? And now it's like, that's crazy. I have a really hard time with that question because it's not, I don't know if I could like cite one thing. It's just living life. Like people come in and out of your life, people die, and you kind of realize it's like, oh, I should have spent more time, or like certain things, or you have, even when good things happen and you feel like, oh, I wasn't even really there. That good thing happened, I never celebrated it because I was too worried about what else was going on. I don't know, I think it's just part of getting older too. Like it might just literally be age. You just get more sentimental as time goes on. So that's like a big factor. I don't know if I could like point to one specific event. It's just more so like you learn a lot through the repetition and you start to notice patterns. And then, you know, as I'm building something, I'm building like a career, building an art practice, and you're interacting with more people, it gets an audience, you start getting introduced to different people. You have to introduce yourself to people all the time. Like I'm constantly introducing myself and my practice to people, and you get really good at like, if you're doing it mindfully, you start like reading yourself. You're like, oh wait, I said this and I think this, but do I actually think this? Or if I do, okay, then why? And it just speaks to like, I don't know, that's just the grind. just trying to be aware of what's happening at all times. But I don't know, I'm sorry, I couldn't really like give you a full like shifting moment.
That's fine. Thank you.
No, it's okay. I mean, I think that's so funny. There's always pressure on the interviewer to like give the like, let me give you the like, you know. But like, I think they appreciate that you're being genuine, and that's really what this space is also about. Because, it's just very important for us to learn from not just like the final product of your work, but like literally what you're thinking, how you go about it, That's why I think this was special. Which is like, you know, somebody could see your work in a gallery, or somebody could see your work online or whatever, and they might just be like, that guy's like amazing, incredible, like, and you are, but like, what's the practice, what's the philosophy, what's the struggle, right? Elements of that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Let's give it up for Julian. Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.